Singapore just posted a $6.8 billion budget surplus. The government is literally swimming in money right now. So why does it feel like you're drowning? If you live in Singapore, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your rent keeps climbing. Hawker food that used to be $3 is now $5. That promotion you got last year barely covers the increase in your monthly expenses. And yet the headlines keep saying Singapore's economy is booming. Record surplus. Highest GDP per capita in Asia. Everything is amazing. Except it's not. At least not for you. Here's what nobody is talking about. While the government made record money, your household income grew at the lowest rate in 5 years. 4.3%. That's it. You know who had higher wage growth? Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia. Countries we used to call developing economies. You are in the richest country in Southeast Asia and your wages are growing slower than everyone else in the region. Now I have been covering Singapore's economy for a while. 70% of my audience is Singaporean, and the number one question I keep getting is this. If the economy is doing so well, why am I struggling to save? And that's exactly what this video is about. Because in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you 3 things. First, where that $6.8 billion actually came from. Second, why almost none of it feels like it reached your pocket. And third, the one thing happening right now that is about to make this whole situation even worse. That last part, most people have no idea it is coming. But when you see it, everything about your monthly budget is going to make sense. So if you have ever felt like you are working harder for less, or if you are tired of headlines telling you the economy is great, while your savings account says otherwise, stay till the end. Because what I am about to show you changes how you see everything. Let's get into it. Part 1, the numbers that don't add up. So let's start with the good news. At least what the government calls good news. Singapore posted a $6.8 billion budget surplus in 2024. The GDP per capita is $153,000 when you adjust for purchasing power. That is the second highest in the entire world. On paper, Singapore is crushing it. But here is where things start to fall apart. Your median household income growth last year was 4.3%. 4.3%. That is the lowest it has been in 5 years. Now let me put that in perspective for you. Vietnam's wage growth last year was 7.7%. Thailand was higher than Singapore. Malaysia was higher than Singapore. Even the Philippines had stronger wage growth. You are living in the richest country in Southeast Asia and your income is growing slower than countries that are supposed to be catching up to you, not leaving you behind. But it gets worse. While your income grew 4.3%, let's talk about what happened to your expenses. Inflation in Singapore hit 6.12% at its peak. Food prices went up. Housing now takes 29.4% of your median income. Transport costs are climbing. Healthcare premiums are rising. Education expenses are not getting any cheaper. So let's do the math together. If your income grew by 4.3%, but inflation was 6.12%, you did not break even. You actually got poorer. Your money buys less today than it did last year. And that is not a feeling. That is math. This is why that $3 chicken rice now costs $5. This is why your grocery bill feels heavier every month. This is why you got a raise and somehow still feel like you are falling behind. Because you are. Now here's the part that makes people angry. And honestly, it should. 72% of Singaporeans say the cost of living is their number one concern. 72%. That is not a small group. That is almost 3 out of every 4 people you know. And yet the government just announced a record surplus. So if the government is making more money than ever, and you are making less in real terms, where is all that money going? That is the question nobody seems to be asking. But the answer is right there in the numbers. And when you see it, everything clicks into place. Part 2, the hidden truth. So where did that $6.8 billion surplus actually come from? Let me show you the breakdown. Corporate tax revenue was up 10.2%. 10.2%. That is where most of the money came from. Big companies paid more in taxes. GST. Collections went up because the rate increased from 7% to 8%, and then to 9%. More money from consumption taxes. Property taxes went up. More money from real estate. But here is what did not go up by much. Your personal income tax, because your income barely grew. 4.3%, remember? So the government made record money, but it did not come from you earning more. It came from businesses doing well, and you paying more every time you bought something. Let that sink in for a second. The surplus came from corporate profits and consumption taxes, not from higher wages, not from you getting richer, from you spending more on the same things you were already buying. And that is just the surface. It gets deeper. Let's talk about where that money is actually sitting. GDP growth in Singapore looks amazing on paper, but GDP does not measure how you are doing. It measures how the economy is doing. And those two things are not the same anymore. The wealth in Singapore is concentrated at the top. The lower 20% of households face 2.7% inflation. The wealthiest households face 2.1% inflation. Same country, same economy. But if you are lower income, everything costs you more. Progressive policies like vouchers and subsidies help. They provide temporary relief, but they do not change the structure. They do not fix the root cause. So when the headlines say Singapore is doing great, they are not wrong. Singapore, the country, is doing great. Singapore, the economy is doing great. But here is the real question. Are you doing great? Because if you are watching this video, chances are the answer is no. Or at least not as great as those headlines make it sound. And it is not just you. It is not like you are doing something wrong. 2/3 of companies in Singapore have a hiring freeze right now. 2 out of every 3 companies are not hiring. Tech layoffs have been hitting hard. Promotions are stagnant. People are staying in the same roles longer because there is nowhere to move up. So even if you are doing everything right, saving where you can, working hard, trying to get ahead, the system is not rewarding that the way it used to. This is not just a Singapore problem, by the way. Australia is seeing similar patterns. Canada is dealing with it. New Zealand too. High cost of living and wage growth that does not keep up. But in Singapore, the gap feels wider, because when the government announces a $6.8 billion surplus, and you are struggling to save $1,000 a month, that disconnect hits. It feels personal. Even if wages catch up, there is another problem most people are not preparing for. Climate change is about to hit your wallet harder than you think. By 2035, climate change will cost Singapore $1.5 billion every single year. 1.5 billion. And that cost does not just disappear, it gets passed down to you. Here is how. Singapore imports 90% of its food. 90%. When extreme weather hits other countries, supply chains break down. Droughts in Australia, floods in Malaysia, heat waves in Thailand. All of that means food prices spike, and you pay for it at the grocery store. But it is not just food. Insurance premiums are already going up because of climate risk. Your home insurance, your car insurance. Companies are pricing in more floods, more heat, more extreme weather. Transport costs are rising. Infrastructure needs upgrades to handle flooding and heat. Seawalls, drainage systems, cooling systems for buildings. All of that costs money. And that money comes from somewhere. Higher taxes, higher fees, higher costs passed on to consumers, to you. So even if your salary goes up 5% next year, if climate costs push your expenses up 6%, you are still losing ground. You are not just competing with today's cost of living. You are competing with tomorrow's cost of living, and it is going to be worse. So let me summarize where we are right now. The government has a $6.8 billion surplus. Your income is growing at the slowest rate in 5 years. The money came from corporations and consumption, not your paycheck. Wealth inequality is widening, and climate costs are about to make everything more expensive. That is the reality. So what do you actually do about this? Let's break down what we just covered. Singapore posted a record $6.8 billion surplus. Your income grew at the slowest rate in 5 years. The money came from corporations and consumption taxes, not your paycheck. Wealth inequality is widening, and climate costs are about to make everything worse. Now you understand why it feels like you are working harder for less. Because you literally are. The system is optimized for GDP growth, not household wealth, not your savings account. GDP growth. But here is the thing. Understanding the problem is only step one. The real question is, how do you actually build wealth in a system like this? Because there are strategies, ways to navigate this. And most Singaporeans, Australians, Malaysians, they are not using them. The people who are getting ahead right now are not waiting for wages to catch up. They are not hoping the government will fix it. They are taking specific actions that work even when income growth is slow and costs are rising. And that is exactly what I am going to break down in my next video. I am going to show you the exact wealth-building strategies that work in high-cost, low-wage growth economies. Where to put your money when inflation is eating your savings. How to protect yourself from the climate costs that are coming. And the moves high-income earners in Singapore are making right now that most people do not even know exist. If you want to see that, click the video on your screen right now. Or check the link in the description. Because understanding the problem is not enough. You need to know what to do about it. And before you go, drop a comment and tell me, are you feeling this squeeze? What is the one expense that has hit you the hardest this year? Is it rent, food, transport? Let me know. And if you are watching this from Australia, Malaysia, Canada, New Zealand, is your country dealing with the same thing? Because I have a feeling this pattern is everywhere right now. If this video opened your eyes, hit that subscribe button. I have got more videos breaking down what is really happening in these economies. Not the headlines, the reality. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.